Hey, good evening, everybody. I hope you guys are having a wonderful, wonderful week here. We just had Memorial Day weekend, and summer is supposedly have kicked off. I don't know anything about that. It was 66 for a high today, but I suppose that's neither here nor there. What is hot right now is election 2022. We just finished up with the Republican state convention here just a couple weeks ago. We've had a ton of Lincoln Day dinners. We're now going into June Dairy Days. You got these breakfasts all over the place. Great opportunities to meet candidates, talk to folks, get educated on who is running in your primary districts and wherever you're at come August 9th. Because when we get to this general election, come 2022, November, I keep telling you guys this. It is so imperative that we have a red wave here in the state of Wisconsin. And as such, one of the goals that I like to seek here with the Wisconsin Conservative Conversations is to bring you, the listening audience, the best information possible. Like I said, I want every candidate on here gubernatorial, lieutenant governor, assembly, dog catcher. I don't care. The more information for the people, for you guys, the better. And as such, we're going to bring on a special guest right now. I had the opportunity to meet him at the Wapaka County Lincoln dinner. Him and his family, beautiful family, real nice. We had a great conversation. We've spoken several times since then, and really like this guy. He's just a really cool cat. So I want to welcome aboard here for the 6th Assembly District, Nathan J. Michael. Nathan, how are you, sir?
I am better than I deserve, Ed. Thank you very much.
By the way, I got to tell you, man, that is a strong name, Nathan. And I'm gonna compliment you that because that's my son's name, and it's just nothing but respect for that.
I agree. Well, I tell people it was the prophet in the Bible that told David he was doing some bad stuff. So when you have a prophet going to the king and telling him you're not doing the right thing, it's got to have a strong guy behind it.
Yeah, well, I guess now that makes sense because that's when my son kind of comes up to me and gives me a reality check every now and again. And it's always one of those interesting things where you have your 10-year-old come up to you and he's like, "Hey, Dad, it doesn't work like that." Man, I just got checked by my 10-year-old kid. Wow, that's amazing. But yeah, you do
Credit.
need those reality checks. Very important.
Yeah, for sure.
So
My oldest is
let's.
now five. I think
Oh,
she's
go ahead. I'm
six.
sorry.
I was just gonna say my oldest is six, so she's starting to get to that age where she's giving dad some advice, and dad better listen.
You know, they say that when it comes to children, that they're so untainted by the world around them that they give you the first thought is the purest and most honest of thoughts. And I think there's a direct correlation to what we're going to be talking about here tonight because in politics, oftentimes you have a lot of people that'll give you lip service, a lot of people that'll bend the truth, others that'll just outright lie about things. And it can be kind of nasty business. And I think one of the things that we like to see or that we want to see as a body politic is honesty, integrity, in what people really think. It may not even be that we necessarily have to agree, but we just to be able to understand the other side of that. And as such, you yourself you have decided to kind of throw your hat into the ring. You're looking to get into the 6th Assembly District.
That is correct. So the Sixth Assembly covers all the way from Wittenberg, all the way over to Pulaski, and down to Hortonville. My biggest town is Shawano, the city of Shawano, and got Hortonville, village of city of Seymour, or village of Seymour. Sorry, Seymourians, if you're listening and you were insulted when I said village. But those are my biggest populated areas and all the in between that covers that.
So you have a lot of rural area, a lot of farmland, a lot of, as I like to say, nothing in between from point A to
Mm.
point B.
Yep, very conservative. I'm very glad about that.
Mhm.
But a lot of farmer, a lot of egg. It's actually a lot of people are moving to from the town border people from Greece to Shawano. So it's expanding, and it's a very pretty spot. Got everything you need. So big enough for everything you need, small enough to still be comfortable.
Well, it kind of reminds me of I live in the Washera County area, and we're about 45 minutes due west of Oshkosh, and very rural, very conservative for the most part. But I've noticed, over the past 2 years since the whole COVID outbreak, there's been a huge influx of people from southeast Wisconsin, northeast Illinois, that would come on up here initially to get away from the cities and their draconian business that they have down there, the rules, edicts, and everything else. And I'm sure we're going to jump into that here. Um, but it's also brought, you bring people from other areas. Oftentimes, they bring their voting patterns with them. Have you seen any impact, any change in that over these past couple of years in particular?
Actually, not really. Most people I've talked to, they understand how conservative my area is, the area I live in, the sixth district. So, and over the past 80 years, it has voted conservative, Republican, I guess I should say.
Mhm.
So, not a big change. I'm seeing that, not an influx of differing opinions, not as heavy as maybe the other, like Oshkosh, you're closer to Milwaukee. Uh,
Certainly.
area. I haven't seen that pattern.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing, and I'm going to be interested to see what the results of the 22 election are going to be,
Yeah.
just to see what changes in the demographics or the rise in voting numbers, just that way. Period.
Yes.
Um, but let's get back to you though. You're jumping in into a race that's currently held. The sixth assembly district is held by Gary Talkin. I hope I pronounced his name right.
Yep, you did.
Ah, see, I finally got it. There we go. He decides not to run, so now I finally get it right. But there are six people running here, yourself being one of six. What was your motivation for wanting to get into? Well, why get into politics? I mean, it's obviously we see how mired up it can get, but there's got to be a certain passion, a certain motivation. What is yours?
So my passion began in last year, it was 2021. After the 2020 election, I started doing some digging around, listening to some conservative people, Mike Lindell being one of them. And I said, listen, if my I need to do something about that. So I have a pretty comfortable living. I'm a business run or anything like that for another accomplishment or anything. But I kept digging into the 2020 election and the fire kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger inside of me. And one day I was listening to the radio, some guy railing about something new that was found, I'm sure. And I said, I have got to do something. Edmund Burke said that the only way for evil to succeed is that good men do nothing. And so I looked at my daughter, my oldest daughter, Bella, one day, and I thought, am I going to be able to tell her that amidst all this chaos of COVID and CRT and Afghanistan pulling out and the 2020 election and a government that hates its citizens, amongst all this, am I going to be able to tell my daughter that when that was happening, I did everything I could for you? And I wanted to be able to tell her that. And so that's what got me started on this. I heard that Gary Tauchen, and I had never even thought of politics really. I mean, I have my yard signs out there. They got my ugly face on it. And I go, I never thought I'd see my face in people's yards before. So I met with Gary Tauchen a couple of times. He said, I heard that he was going to be retiring. And I thought, that's something I can do. That's something where I can take the role and make a difference somehow. Our founding fathers founded a country, and there was no country before that. So no USA before that. And so I said, well, I know that they were men, and they can do it. So can I. So
Right.
that's really what got me started.
Well, one of the things, as a student of history, that I've always appreciated when I see individuals like yourself jumping into a race, it was the vision of the founders that the average person end up being a citizen legislator. They end up whether it be in their state houses or on the federal side of things. But the idea was always to go in, serve for a period of time, and then you go back to your life as it was before, whether you were a shoemaker, cobbler, farmer, whatever it was. Um, and I think it takes a special person, especially today in 2022 with the advent of social media and everything, because you put yourself out there on display. Your family's got to kind of weather it along with you. Your supporters are going to be there for you as well, and they got to weather it as well too. In this race up to this point, how has that been for you? The support systems and any negativity that you had to encounter?
Well, thankfully, I had talked to my wife about it beforehand. She said, "I think you should do it." And my wife's the opposite of me: very timid, very shy, very quiet. And so that's why I married her, because she's the opposite of me. So I wouldn't want to marry myself, that's for sure. They've been doing it very well. Our schedule has changed for the little girls because it used to
Mhm.
be earlier mornings, earlier to bed, but now it's late to bed because there's a lot of events we go through. The
Yes.
negativity, that was interesting to get over, confronting people and them having a differing opinion from me, and passionately different as well. When I would say one thing, I believe they'd say another. The world of politics is not for people that take things personally. I had to
No.
find that out right away. I was told to that going into it, but I found that out, and right now it's easier to let things slide off. I was knocking doors today. Lady yells at me, "Get out of here! Get out of here!" She says, and I said, "Okay." Walked away and just go, well, she's not attacking me personally. She's attacking what I believe and what I stand
Right.
for. So they've been weathering it very well. I'm always a people person, so
Mhm.
I, it's a new high for me. I tell you what,
Certainly.
I've started my own business. That was a new high. Running for office, that's a new high. It's just another exciting door that I'm opened up and decided to run through. I have no regrets.
Well, and you mentioned, it's kind of like a new high. Um, I think it is interesting whether you're running for an office or doing what I'm doing, because there is a part of me that's always motivated to get the next conversation, to have the next, discussion, have the next candidate on, because I think there's something to it, and I've often said to other candidates, you really have to. It's not ego in the sense that it's a negative, but you have to believe in yourself enough that your ideas are worth putting out there. They're worth believing in, and
Oh,
that you want to share that with people.
oh,
So as you've
absolutely.
gone as
Well,
you've gone about and share those ideas with people, what's been the reception, to those that people that, obviously that aren't slamming the doors on your face or anything like that?
right. I will tell you the truth. I have found more positive than negative. I think part of that is because I live in a conservative area, but I
Mhm.
think also part of that is because we have a government that hates us, and people can see that. We have so I think there's a shift there. I even meet some Democrats
Yeah.
that say, "Well, I voted Democrat all my life, but they said I sure don't like what the man that's in charge right now is doing, so I might switch seats." There's more positive than negative for passion,
Mhm.
for newness. People
Right.
see that I'm young as well, and they like that as well. I guess they love to see young blood getting
Mhm.
involved. And I must admit, there's not a lot of young blood out there that does get involved. So I'm glad to set the example for other people and say, hey, you see change that needs to happen. If not you, who? If not now, when?
Yep. I was at the Washera County Lincoln Day dinner, and I've attended several different ones in the area. And I was one gentleman in particular I was talking to. And one of the questions that came up, I was like, "Where are the other cats like you?" He was in his late 20s. He's like, "What do you mean?" I'm like, "Well, there's a lot of old folks here, and nothing against them, but where are the people that are under 30?" I'm 49. So I mean, I'm kind of like in between there, but where's the next crop of conservatives coming up? And I think that is when I see individuals like yourself or Destiny Gorski, who was running for a county supervisor board up by the Wausau area, and several other young folks. To me, it heartens me because I love the fact that okay, there is conservative new blood, but we need more of it. And I think this is an issue I think that RPW's kind of missed the boat on, and I think they're trying to find a way to get to this. But how would you propose, or just how have you interacted with people to try to bring up those people within your circles, within your age group?
So the best I can do is set an example.
Mhm.
By my actions, I am setting an example for them. Another thing I think that separates me apart a little bit is I was raised as a homeschooler. So I was born in a family of 10. I'm number 7. But being raised in a homeschool atmosphere, I can think outside the box a little bit and see you're definitely not going to get a young generation that loves America with the public school system the way it is now.
Right.
Um, and I developed my love just by living in the country. At 13, I realized that capitalism was fantastic. Equal opportunity, not equal outcome, but it's equal
Right.
opportunity. So you can work as hard as you want to try to get what you want done. So for young people, the best I can do is myself, set an example. And also I bring my kids along to a lot of things. I
Mm,
got three little girls. Um, and I bring them to show people that
yeah.
I'm responsible for these and that I'm teaching them the way I want them to go. So the best I can do is, yeah, I've said it before, set an example for the younger generation. Hopefully they see me and they say, hey, if he can do that, I can do that too. And hopefully younger people can catch on as well. When you realize your home could not be your home, I talk to older. I want to give my girls what I had when I was younger. I'm 32. I'm still very young,
Mhm.
but I meet old people. They say, "Oh, if it was only like when I was younger." Well, if it's worse now than it was then, what's it going to be in the future? I've read books about Russia. I know what Nazi
Yeah.
Germany did to Australia, and I'm going to just try to prevent that from happening. And hopefully, setting an example is the best way to do that.
Well, it's interesting because I can't even tie this to COVID. I remember when everything locked down and on the onset, and everybody was afraid to go out. And I've always kind of lived the life that, well, you know what, I'm gonna do what I'm gonna do, and money don't make itself, bills don't pay itself, and yeah, my youngest, who's the youngest of five, he's the one that lives with us. All the other ones are grown up, and it's like, man, I can't. There's no you don't want to ever show your child cowardice, especially in the face of uncertainty. They want that certainty. They want that leadership. I mean, obviously, you want to be safe, you want to be tactical on how you do things, but yeah, the example that we set forth for the younger people is I think that's key to everything, and an example of bravery and standing up for what you believe in is essential to raising the next generation of, I think, conservative, critical thinking children.
Exactly. I mean, who do they look to? They should be looking to their parents, but unfortunately, parents are sending their children off. And who are they looking up to? They're looking up to their teachers. They're looking up to what, drag queens now, right?
Yeah, I wasn't gonna touch that one, but yeah,
Oh, got to touch on
did you
that.
see the story in Texas?
Think I touched on it? No. Go ahead and like.
Oh, I don't want to get a YouTube strike, but let's just say that there was a nice little neon sign that involved an activity that, like you would do with ice cream, um, in that, and very provocative, and yeah, I would lose my lid on that one, but that's just me.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, it's nuts. And I was just listening today on the radio. Some NFL team has allowed well, how do we get off on this tangent? But anyways, a transgender cheerleader. So on their as part of their team, I thought, well, I don't watch football very much, but definitely wouldn't be entertaining the thought watch that team now. But anyways,
Yeah,
I digress.
but let's go back to something else because I think this does tie together. Because when you think about the school system, and we're talking public school system in particular, you even throw private schools in there to a certain extent,
Mhm.
because your public school system, these are government employees. A lot of people can't make that connection, but that is what it is. It is government run schools,
Mm-hmm.
and oftentimes this is the stuff that's being pushed down these kids' throats, and often behind the parents' back because parents are too busy with everything else. Um, when you look at, and this was a hot button topic, I want to say several months ago, and I think it still is to a certain extent, but there's so many issues going back and forth. When we think about CRT, when we think about the liberal indoctrination within the school system, how do we turn around a problem that took generations to manifest itself in this way?
Well, I say one thing about the public school system, and I take it from Julaine Appling. She
Mhm.
said this, and then I took it and made it my own. She said The schools are not redeemable, but they are a battleground.
Yes.
I had to think about that. And yes, I believe we will never regain the public schools because they're state funded entities. The government takes my tax dollars and gives it to my local school. And I have no say as to what is being taught there, no control over it. This school is going to get my money anyway. Why should they care what they teach or not, whether I'd agree with it or not?
Right.
But that being said, I don't believe we should leave the school boards to just anybody and everybody. I believe good people should run for school boards. It's a battleground, and we should take fight to them. So I encourage people to run for school boards as well to do their part at what they can. But the end in some of it all is I'm taking responsibility for my children. We teach them well. I should say my wife homeschools them, and I encourage her greatly.
Oh yeah,
I call homeschooling anything I do with the girls, but I take my
certainly.
kids and I don't send them to public school, and I practice what I preach, what I would want
Mm,
other people to do. I think I encourage them. I do myself, but I don't think the schools are the public schools. That being said, difference between public and private, but I don't believe the public schools are redeemable. No, they should.
right.
They're a government entity, and they will operate as such.
Right. Well, I think part of the problem too is that there's so many dollars that are attached to it, purse strings, with conditions. And I know Reagan even campaigned on this, but back before when Carter was president, that's when they established the Department of Education. Reagan campaigned on it. I know several other Republicans have campaigned on getting rid of the DOE. This is something that certainly needs to be handled on local levels, which kind of gets to another thing I want to kind of get into when we think about all the problems that we have here in the state and the issues on the federal side, which seem to really be seeping over like these wicked little tendrils that come on down. How do we protect yourself? If you were to be part of the assembly there, how would you propose that we try to protect yourself, to have a seawall, if you will, against an overreaching government, federal government, so that we as a state can be more independent, more Wisconsin first?
So my third platform is to limit government. I love the freedom of an individual to choose what they want to do with their private property. The more money an individual keeps, the richer it makes the state because the individual will work harder to get more money, therefore giving more commerce to the
Yep.
state. A friend of mine asked me about, actually, I asked a friend about spending. How would you reduce spending in this state? He said, the more spending you have, the bigger the government is.
Hmm.
So I think one area to anything that limits government is a positive. Less bureaucrats. And what do I mean by bureaucrats? A bureaucrat is someone that's created by the legislature to do a certain job. They're not elected. For instance,
Right.
the EPA, DNR, things like that. Not saying can be completely abolished, but they're bureaucratic entities that don't answer to the American people. They're not elected. They're selected.
Right.
So I believe that a downsizing of government is the best way to keep them out of people's personal pockets, personal property, and personal life. Um, and that's the beauty of America. When you get more government control, when you get more government involvement in your life, you're getting closer to socialism, which then leads to communism, which then
Hmm.
leads to no more America as it was founded.
Well, nationally syndicated talk host Mark Levin has written a book on this about a post-constitutional America. And it's one that I've often thought about because, as we've seen over the past 2 years, the one silver lining I can say with regards to COVID is that it really has exposed a lot of people. You can tell the people that are freedom loving, that are going to go out and do their business, and they understand that being a free man or woman in a free society, there's risks, there's responsibilities, there's things that we have to assume onto ourselves that no one else can do for us. We have to take that. But there's a sizable group out there that were okay with being told what to do, how
And,
to do it, who was
and
essential, who wasn't. Go ahead.
I meet that sizable group. I
Hmm.
talk to people and they say, well, who's going to pay for my doctor bills when I get older? Who's going to take care of me? To which I ask them, do you believe people should take care of you? of your personal problems. I mean, what one instance is, well, who's going to pay for my medical bills when I get older and I can't afford them? Well, if you're a smoker all your life, why should anybody have to pay for your bad decisions? The government,
Right.
who was, I think I know it was Kennedy that said, "Ask not what your country can do for you, but what
Yes.
you can do for your country." It's not what can this country give me; it's what can I bring to this country. It wasn't made of a bunch of people that wanted a nanny state over them. The founding fathers didn't want that. They wanted freedom. Give me liberty or give me death, as Patrick Henry
Hmm.
said. So I meet that group, and it's an older group.
Yep.
I understand that they feel a little more insecure, but your financial decisions when you're younger should make up your lifestyle later. No one should have to pay for your
Hmm.
lifestyle. Certainly not me. I don't want to pay for your lifestyle, and I don't require you to pay for my lifestyle or any
Right.
decisions that I decide to make. Each one is responsible for themselves, and I'm not saying that there can't be community that gets together, but not socialism and not government compulsory requiredness.
Yeah.
That's a word.
It is now. We'll take it and run with it. I find it interesting because I've heard people say that we're a quasi socialist state because if you look at things like Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid, and my response typically is, well, slow your roll there, Slappy, because when you take a look at the society that we've had, one that has flourished, well over 200 years, any society is there's a compact that we have between each other. And as a civil society, we do have a fiduciary duty to take care of those that cannot take care of themselves. However, that does not mean because you were reckless with your finances at some point that we're going to go ahead and just take care of everything because you decide you want to have a party lifestyle for 50 years before you fell ill. Can't do that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think that the problem there is that there's people that have bought into this idea that, well, Social Security will be there or I'll be taken care of. I don't think people necessarily anticipated some of that, which kind of makes me wonder what can we do, in your opinion, to kind of bolster the idea of financial literacy? Because I think that's something that's sorely missing. I mean, people can't even balance a checkbook. How do we deal with that, especially with the younger generation, so that way they can
Well,
understand what it is?
I know I was watching. I think it was. I'm not going to say movie by Curtis Bowers called Agenda. He talked about how actually a greater percent of the population back in the 1920s, 1940s, a greater percent of people were entrepreneurs. They started their own
Oh, yeah.
business. They took care of themselves. But when you have a society that throws kids into the cogs of school, they get through school, they get through college, then they can be put in the cog. Then it can just be another cog in the machine of government.
Hmm.
They're not creating self-sustainability um, to sustain themselves through anything like that. I I don't know who said it, but it was one of our founding fathers that said, "For this republic," and I'm paraphrasing, "for this
Yeah.
republic to stand or stay strong, you need a well-educated people." And I'm not talking educated about LGBT junk or anything like that. That's not education. That's
Right.
indoctrination. But I'm talking about an education where they speak about the founding fathers, men that you would want to aspire to, and the sacrifices they made and what they did. If you have a well-educated society, you're going to want to get young people to sustain themselves, to start their own businesses. I believe a lot of it is in education, but
Mm.
not the education they're going to get in the public school, unfortunately.
No, I think you're absolutely correct because if you think of the way that schools were from the inception of the country all the way up until the Industrial Revolution, they were set up in such a way, you weren't going, from 5 years old to 18. I think you stopped somewhere like seventh, eighth grade, but, reading, writing, arithmetic, basic science, whatever they knew at the time. And of course, teaching citizenship. They
And
wanted patriotic citizens.
let me tell
And it was, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, we're talking about the education of individuals. I started my own business because I was apprenticed to another guy that did
Yeah.
HVAC and cooling. I learned through apprenticeship. He taught me. I stood by his side. I didn't go to college. I did not have. I did not get a. Well, I have a high school diploma because I went through tech college. But any other than that, I just learned from the guy who taught me. During the Industrial Revolution, the parents left the home, or specifically the
Hmm.
father too. He wasn't around to teach little Johnny a trade, and so little Johnny becomes a little ignorant. So that's one of the factors as well that's changed. Is
Right. But also during that time, there was a lot of people they wanted to. There's a reason why the schools are the way they are. Why you have a bell. Why you have to ask to do X, Y, or Z. You go to this class and you're marched around like good little troopers, and you're sat there. You're taught to the test, so that eventually you could be a cog in a machine and punch the rivet, punch the rivet, punch the rivet, 8 hours a day.
and
And
there's
it's kind of
no dream, no dream there.
what's that?
I said there's no dream there. There's
No.
no self, I guess I would say.
Well, that's where the critical thinking skills, I think it's really, is thrown out the window. You give a test and it's, four answers and one of them is right. And it's like, that's not how the real world works. Real world tells us there's several different ways to get this done right, some better
Oh,
than others.
and one question, I think they even have questions in school that are phrased real world scenario. So does that mean all the other stuff you're doing is fantasy world scenario? Shouldn't you deal with real world problems all the time?
I just, all I know is that I've never had to use pi in a real world situation, but I know it's 3.143, but that's a whole nother matter. I want to address something here that you had talked about. You brought this up two different times, and you had said, government that hates its citizens,
Yes.
and hate is a strong word. And I think there are definitely individuals within government that certainly despise and look down upon us. But I was hoping you can elaborate a little bit more on that because I think there's an argument to be made there for sure.
Okay, so when I say that is look at the gas prices, what has happened to them. First thing Joe Biden did in office, nix the Keystone Pipeline.
Right.
What happened in Afghanistan? The debacle that left, I believe, 12, don't quote me on that number, but I think 12 of our troops dead.
Mm.
Pullout over, let's just say 80, I think it was over 80 billion plus money left to the Taliban, a terrorist group of all things. Then we also have the open border, the wide open border, I should say. All these actions lead me to believe that this government does not have my best interest at heart. And I'm a citizen of the United States, but I'm getting treated as a secondary citizen while these other people coming across the border be welcomed in. We're reserving baby formula for them over in warehouses where our own shelves are empty. And that's what I mean when I say a government that, and I'm not talking about necessarily local states. I guess I'm pointing the finger at the big man. I say that loosely. Big man. That's the president of the White House, Joe Biden. It's clear that he hates me as an American citizen and wants not to see me flourish. He wants to see me suffer through his policies. It's black and white. Yes, it is a strong word, and I do say it knowingly.
And I think it's an interesting thing. You mentioned several different things between the formula issue, gas prices, inflation, all the other stuff, open borders. Um, how does Wisconsin protect itself or try to at least mitigate some of these problems here? Because I think this is something that people in both the Senate and the Assembly might have. I don't know if necessarily say they have the power to do it, but maybe there's a way to incentivize things because one of the things I've noticed over the years is Wisconsin has a brain drain. Our best and brightest generally tend to leave the state for, greener pastures, as it were. And then we end up coming back. Trust me, I've left Wisconsin like 8, 9 times and I come back each and every time. But I got to the point where I'm just like, nah, I'm home. I'll go visit everywhere else. How do we mitigate these problems here in Wisconsin?
I've tried to think about that, especially for the border issue. We're not on the border, obviously, but yet how does it impact us? And I was listening to Lieutenant Governor say, "Oh, we should send national troops, our own, what's it called, Coast Guard,
The National Guard down to the border."
Thank you, our own National Guard to the border to help out the border down there. That's one option because I believe you should meet the enemy not in your front door. You should meet them out in the field before they get to your front door. By the time that your front door is too late. But you know what? I think the major thing is that the lion doesn't have teeth. Attorney generals, and we have an attorney general. His name is Josh Cobb.
Yep.
I believe. What if you actually just arrested every single person that was an illegal citizen in Wisconsin? All right, is that so hard to believe? Would anyone want to come to Wisconsin that crossed over the border illegally? Probably not. If they knew that the attorney general was going to arrest them, many instances we have laws already. They're just not being followed. They're not being enforced. And so with the border, I think that'd be a heavy issue right there. As for the other things like lack of baby formula or anything like that, I haven't quite come up with a conclusion on that necessarily. But I do believe self-sustaining is important in Wisconsin. I'm not going to say that Wisconsin food making companies shouldn't export their food to other places, but we're not seeing a shortage of food necessarily. We're seeing a hike in price, definitely, not necessarily a shortage of food. So the border one is the only one that I've thought through, and I think that if just we enforce laws, we wouldn't have a problem necessarily with crime.
No, and I think you're absolutely right about that because I remember during the Trump administration, you did, a bunch of states had sent National Guard troops down. They deployed them down there to help out, CPS down there, the Border Patrol, to help out and patrol these areas because these are vast areas. I mean, the stretch from, parts of California on down across Texas, that's a lot of area to cover. So having the National Guard troops there certainly did help in that factor. I think additionally, we'll get to that here in a second, Miss Cynthia. Oh, you can see the chat room over here. You'll love this. As I was saying, the distraction was real. That's all I'm saying there. But I think, we have the National Guard there. But again, this is one of those things, we have Lee in our chat room as well saying amen on self-sustaining. And I think that's one of those areas where we might want to start looking more into it, which of course I think is going to take a lot of relationship building with other assemblymen, with other senators, just any, again, public-private partnerships. Let's jump to Cynthia's comment here. Typically, I don't really go into the comments when I do these one-on-ones.
Yeah.
But I'm going to do it this time only because, well, she says ban assault rifles. Before I get to this here, I'm just going to say I am extremely 2A. I believe I should have a tank, a Scud missile. Like, I am so 2A, it's ridiculous.
Mhm.
Like, if there's an armament, I should be able to have it. That being said, anybody with brains knows there's no such thing really as an assault rifle. I mean, technically, I suppose you could say they are. Full auto, you ain't getting one unless it's like pre-1986.
Yep.
But that's a whole nother matter. The assault on our Second Amendment. I'm going to let you take this here. I don't even have to ask a question. I'm just going to let you take because I think I know where you're going.
I can take that one, and I love it. I heard a very good, not an analogy, it was a fact. During the Revolutionary War, we had citizens that had ball and musket guns, right?
Mm-hmm.
The English troops had the same thing, ball and musket guns.
Yep.
The citizens were armed to the teeth as much as the military was. Things have changed a little bit. I mean, I personally would like a tank as well. That would be fun.
Epic.
But I'm not gonna get one. So the only reason that you would want to disarm a citizenry, let me get back up. The only reason you'd want to take away teeth from a lion is that so you could do the lion harm, capture the lion, or make him do what you want. The only reason you would ever want to take any guns away from citizens is to do them harm, make them do what you want. So assault, I've been through that argument several times this week already because of the shooting that happened in Texas.
Correct.
So they said, you shouldn't have AR. The thing is, if a 17-year-old boy, if he goes off to war, his parents can sign for him. Let's bring it to 18. If an 18-year-old young man or woman can go to war and carry a weapon, I believe they are definitely competent to own one as well, be it an AR,
Yep.
shotgun, handgun, whatever not. See, the thing is, a gun has never walked into a school or a grocery store and started shooting on its own accord. The gun requires an operator.
That's correct.
Same thing with a knife. Same thing with anything else. Notice, however, guns with operators, shooters, as we call them, often appear in gun-free zones.
That is
Okay,
correct.
so that's the most likely to play. These people that go off and do these school shootings, they're cowards. They're not going to
Mhm.
go where there's armed people. They're going to go where there's unarmed people, as it has been demonstrated. So I am all for a absolutely armed citizenry, because an armed citizenry is a safe citizenry from
Correct.
its government. What did Hitler do? When he took over Austria, he made everyone register their guns. And then after everyone came in and registered their guns, he said, "All right, give them to me or we'll kill you." So then what did he do? They gave them to him and he still killed them. Not
Right.
all, but the Second Amendment is clear. The right for the people to bear arms shall not be infringed. You start taking away any weapon from a citizen, you are infringing,
Yeah.
I believe.
Well, history is rife with rulers, so-called leaders that would take away those weapons that your firearms, and next thing you got the killing fields of Cambodia. You have the mass die-off and the deaths in China. You have what happened in the Soviet Union. You've got the genocides down in Uganda and other countries there in Africa. It is one bad lesson right after another, but the same mistake done each and every time.
And
And I think what happens is that, what do you have when you have when people are armed? You have citizens. You take those arms away, you have slaves.
very good point. I would also like to point out, have you noticed the rhetoric that's being talked about here is like Matthew McConaughey gets on up there and starts talking. Notice he didn't say, "Let's take away guns from people." He said,
Mhm.
"Well, let's just take away ARs from people and create longer waiting lists and more in-depth background checks." They can't take. They've been trying to take away guns, and I mean liberals,
Yep.
people that don't. They've been trying to take away guns for a long time, but they haven't been able to take them completely away. So right now they're saying, "All right, let's just take these guns away. These assault rifles, they're terrible, and let's create longer waiting times." You see, if they get a little bite, they're going to take a bigger bite and a bigger bite, and pretty soon they've gobbled up the whole thing, and we don't have guns. So people need to be wary about the little bite they're just trying to take out right now.
Here, let me give you an analogy, and I think you'll appreciate this. So, what the anti-gun crowd, the anti-Second Amendment, the fascists is what I like to call them, the American communists. What they're trying to say is, hey, Nathan, I'm going to take your arm, your whole left arm. It's for the betterment of society. We will all be better as a result. And of course, your response is going to be,
No.
no. I kind of like this arm. I grew up with it. I've gotten attached to it over the years. I really like my left arm. Okay, how about we compromise? I'm just going to take from your elbow on down. How about that? Nah, still not interested. All right, what if we just take your hand? I
Mm,
mean, you still got most of your arm. Come on, man. No. And I think that's the problem, because if you look at, even during the Trump administration, he had a ban on bump stocks. And it's like, no, 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 no. No compromise at all.
exactly.
You
Because
know,
once you
it,
give a little, they'll take a whole lot more. And you know what? They always keep pushing. They take two steps forward and one step back, but they're still walking forward.
oh yeah, they're still moving forward. And that's why, to me, it's like, all right, if we're gonna play stupid games like you wanna be a sanctuary city for illegals, then I want to see Wisconsin being a constitutional carry state. I want to see Wisconsin being a Second Amendment sanctuary. And you know what? Let's just get everybody trained up. Because to
Mhm.
me, there's no such thing as bad training.
No, not at all. Especially, just think about it. I was talking to one lady, I think it was today, and I said she was a former teacher. And I said, "Well, ma'am, what about arming teachers?" She was against the idea. But just think if every teacher in a school had a sidearm on them. I'm not saying just to put it on top of the desk so some kid could grab it, keep it right on them. Do you think school shootings would happen if that guy knew that there was 20 people inside there that each had a pistol?
Right.
With proper training, even why not? Go ahead, give them some free training. Wouldn't those kids feel a whole lot safer than ducking under their desk or locking the door and hoping that something doesn't happen in their classroom?
And I think, there is a fine line there because I don't think every teacher's going to be comfortable doing that, but I think others will be. And obviously you want to be careful, and nothing's going to solve every problem because unfortunately you can't legislate evil. And
True.
what happened there, what happened in Boston, what happened in, the several others that seem to be back to back to back, which makes you wonder what's going on here.
Mm-hmm.
It's evil.
Mm-hmm. Very
And,
much so.
and I think the only way that you really get past that is by making sure that you have the tools to fight evil.
Yep. So godlessness leads to lawlessness. And I believe the closer people get to the Constitution and the framing of America, the closer you get to the original intent of the writers, I believe a lot of them were believers in God. They and so I believe James Madison, I think, even studied the Book of Deuteronomy, which has a lot of laws written in it to frame our
Yep.
laws similarly. So you get back to the original intent of the founding fathers, you will take care of a lot of problems. It's not mental. I believe there are some mental problems. Don't get me wrong. I believe there are
Yeah.
some people that are completely mentally off, and some of these even shooters might be mentally off. But why is that? What causes the brain to snap? What causes a
Hmm.
person to lose touch with reality, with empathy
Right.
for their neighbor? Well, I believe that's an internal issue, a spiritual issue.
Hmm. Well, and that's a hard one because again, you can't necessarily legislate that, but yeah,
Right.
oftentimes, one of the things that big key words that has come up as of late, as it's relating to the shootings is mental health. Well, I think that's certainly an issue that needs to be addressed, but not necessarily in that aspect.
Well,
We talked about COVID a little bit earlier. And I remember on the onset of it, summer 2020, was later in the summer, I saw some numbers that were just mind blowing. The number of domestic violence, sexual assault, substance abuse, the hotline for suicide help was just through the roof. Young people, older people.
mm,
I would hear things like, in my travels, I would hear from people, man, I can't wait till this lockdown's lifted so I can get away from my family. Meanwhile, I'm over here working. I'm like, man, I'm trying to get back to my family. I don't know what you did wrong, but I like my wife. Like, she's actually kind of cool. I got a cool kid too. So, I'm good that way. But when we think about mental health, what are some things we can do to try to, dare I say, build back better? The mental health of so many people that have been impacted over the last 2.5 years.
the thing with mental health, it's really quite interesting when they talk about mental health. And I believe I've even heard about regulation being introduced to where you would have a mental health test before you'd be able to even own a firearm. Who's doing the test? What I want to know is who's going to what questions are they going to use? Who's going to decide who's mentally stable, who's mentally unstable? And when we do find, let's say, mentally unstable people, I think the answer is wrong. Drugs, a lot of drugging up of individuals, little boys that are made to sit in
Hmm.
class 8 hours. And this is not getting off the mental health. Well, yeah, it is touching on it. Little
It's still
boys who
there.
are made to sit in class for 8 hours a day or whatever it be, 6 hours a day. They're getting too jacked up, too hyper, ADD. Give them some Ritalin. I think Ritalin the drug.
Oh, it
But
is. Yep.
yeah, yeah. Anyway, so doping individuals up to curb their natural, I guess I would say, natural energy, especially for little boys, little girls too,
I would
little
say
boys.
aggression. And I would
That
say aggression because I think that we have to understand the difference between male and female. And boys have this natural competitive aggression that they have. That's why they're always the ones running out there playing tag. That's why they're always rough and tumble. And the little girls are like, "Ah, you got cooties, stay in the mud." You
so
know,
add that to add that to so you got little boys hyperactive, give them Ritalin. Teach also that you came from a slug. Teach evolution in this school so you can believe you came from a slug. So if you believe you came from a worm and you evolved, then everybody else, there's no more rights and no more absolutes. You can do whatever you want. Teach also that little boys can become little girls, or boys can become it's, ands, they, thems, whatever pronoun you want to use. You've got a suit. Just imagine taking one of my little girls and telling them, hey, you can decide whatever you want to be. All right. Talk about confusion. Talk about stress on that little girl's body. What am I supposed to believe anymore? Black's no longer white. White's no longer black. And then you bring this individual up to be an 18-year-old young man, woman. I don't know what they were taught when they were younger. You've got some possibility for mental soup right there. Mental messed up soup right there.
It's almost like if we've given too much choice. I'm old enough to remember we were given choice A, choice B, and you picked one. There was no C, D, E. You either went this way or you went that. No further discussion. It's almost like we've kind of gone in the other direction. It's like, hey, you got 26 different things you can be, maybe more. We don't know.
Just find a letter for it.
You talk about the pressure on some of these kids. I mean, it's like, yeah, that's kind of ridiculous.
Yeah, and you're right about the choices. The choices, I think, a little kid doesn't know even what they want for breakfast, let alone
I don't even know
what they want to be when they grow up, let alone what gender or animal they want to be. Let's talk about the furries. Get the furries in there, of course. Should I use the toilet or should I use the cat litter box? Very sad to mess with an individual's brain, a little kid's brain, no less, and then expect them to grow up having discernment, having clear-cut morality or moral choices to be proper. You're gonna get the product of what you raised, and I think we're seeing the product of it.
So as a state, how do we improve that? Because I don't think social workers are necessarily the answer, the panacea to all these problems, but how do we reach out to people that are feeling in this dire situation? An individual with gender dysphoria, an individual that just kind of looks at the world around them and they don't see hope. How do we, as a state, as legislators, how do we try to at least get some positive impact into that?
That is I would call that a more spiritual issue than anything, but trying to tackle it from a state level.
Yeah.
First, I believe it starts with the state schools, unfortunately, because that's where kids are nabbed when they're very little. Kindergarten all the way up through high school, they're in classes being indoctrinated several hours a day, and I would say this state, if let's say state schools did stick around. Let's say I wasn't able to make school choice happen as a legislator. So I work with what I got, right? I would say get any form of indoctrination out of there. Get a love of country instilled back into the school, so we have people that are proud to live in America. It's the best country by far. I believe that still to this day.
Bar none.
Such hecticness happening. But to people that are raised in that, to people that have grown up in that and are still feeling left out or still feeling a little lonely, I say, you know what? The only person that can cleanse your soul, wash it white as snow, is Jesus Christ. He's the ultimate healer. He's the man with the plan. And you can't undo what's been done. Right. But you can definitely make decisions for your future. You are responsible. Responsibility, you have the ability to choose your response. So no matter the external circumstances, you can still choose the response of your current circumstances and change the outcome. But I believe Jesus is the ultimate answer for that outcome to be changed.
There was a book, and I don't know if you ever had a chance to read it. It's called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. It's written by Stephen Covey. What's that?
I read it years ago, but I've forgotten a lot of it.
Same here, years ago. But I mean, I To me, it's probably one of the top 5 best books I've ever read. And the reason I say that because my biggest takeaway from that book was, at the end of the day, you're responsible. You're responsible for how you react to a situation.
Yes.
You own that. Nathan, you can't make me feel bad about nothing. You can't make me happy either. I choose to be happy. I choose to be upset. I choose to be whatever. And it's funny because once you kind of start taking ownership of how you respond, how you feel, your world changes. And it is amazing.
So there's actually a story. The man is renowned. He wrote a book, and I've read it. I can't remember, but he was a Jew that was in Auschwitz during World War II.
Yes,
Yeah. Okay.
I
Probably
know who
famous
you're
story.
talking about. Go ahead, though, please.
Anyways, he realized that even though he was in such horrible circumstances, being tortured by the Nazi soldiers, having to put dead bodies into the crematorium, he still had the ability to choose his responses towards his external happenings. He realized
Right.
that these Nazi soldiers could not break him. They never broke his heart. They could break his spirit. They couldn't break what was inside him. He had the ability and the control over them to say, you guys, they could.
Oh, you're breaking up a little bit here.
Still here.
Right
Hello?
as you're telling the good story here, it starts breaking up on us.
Oh no. Am I back
All
now?
right, you're
Am I
coming.
back?
All right, you're coming back now. All right, there we go.
Coming back now. Where did I lose you?
All right, but he chose his responses to the external.
Exactly. No matter what the Nazi soldiers would do, no matter how much horror he was going through, he had the ability to choose his own response.
Yeah, and I think that's certainly a lesson I think a lot of people can either learn or reaffirm. Now, I want to ask you one final question here before we wrap up because we generally like to try to stay within about an hour time. But I'm feeling like I could probably do 2-3 hours, a conversation with you easily. Now, but that being said, though, you're running for this assembly district seat here. There are 6 of you in total, and I think it's going to be awesome because we're going to see obviously you guys kind of talk about where you stand, what you bring to the table, and at the end of the day, what is the answer to that one question? Nathan Michael, what do you bring to the table? I'm going to give you the wide screen because I think this question requires all you.
Okay. Hope I don't break up for this question as well. But what I bring to the table is what got me started was the 2020 election. Not only that, I've researched it and I've spent hours looking into it, and I realized, and I tell people, they ask what separates me from my other opponents. I say blankly, I believe Trump won the 2020 election. But my knowledge of the election in Wisconsin and how it was stolen is not the only thing. I believe I was raised as a patriot in a family of 10 children. I loved America. I loved capitalism. When I was 13 years old, I found out just how awesome capitalism was. I understand that the founding fathers created a country that is that created the federal government. The federal government did create created the federal government. I understand have sovereignty. The federal government does not have power over the states. The federal government is supposed to preserve and protect the states and take care of for some infrastructure. But the freedom of the individual states is an amazing thing that's been lost. For instance, Roe v. Wade. We do not have the federal government can't tell us that it is either right, it's against the law to kill your baby, or that it is lawful to kill your baby. That's a state issue. I believe the states should take the power back that they originally have in many, many, many matters,
Mhm.
abortion being one of them. Um, so, and just a deep love of life in general, not only for birth at conception, but carrying that theme through on to people's future, to flourishing, letting their life flourish in the state of their own choices. So, j- j- liberty and freedom are positively exciting. We're the bastion of it right now. If I believe it was Reagan who said, if the lights go out in America, the lights will go out everywhere else. And so I believe we stand at a pinnacle of, as an example to other countries. And so I just passion, life, liberty, and all the goodness that comes with that. I think that's what just separates me a little bit and makes me that much more edgy, so to speak, if that's a word to use.
You know what? If you're using it, we're gonna roll with that. I told you we're good that way.
Oh, orating or oration might not be one of my strong points, but I don't care.
Like I said, we just sometimes if you got a good word and it just that's not a word. It is today, and we're running with it.
Oh,
Something you said, and I got to share this because this is a story that it really hit me. It hit me hard. It impacted my life in a lot of ways because um, toward the southern part of Spain, there is the Straits of Gibraltar, and there was a pillar there, and there are two pillars, what they call the pillars of Hercules, and there was a placard that was there for ships to see, years gone by, and it said non plus ultra, or no, non terra plus ultra. Non terra plus ultra means there is no land further beyond. Now, of course, after they discover, the discovery of the New World in the 1400s, um, that was changed to say plus ultra, go beyond. And that phrase non terra plus ultra really stuck with me because when we think about, like you said, you turn the lights, the lights go out in America, that's it. There is no more light. Reagan's speech on the shining city on the hill. And I can't help but think that if America falls, there is no land beyond that. No, Mars maybe, but we're not there yet. Come on, Elon, hook a brother up. But yeah,
I'm
to
just
me, it's
making
like
fun.
this is it. This is the final stand. And we have to make every vote, every election, every opportunity to project an America first, a Wisconsin first, a positive citizenship here. And it's just, like I said, it's just something that really impacted me when I read this years ago.
Yep, very true. It's if you're saving, as Mike Lindell says, if you're saving your money for a rainy day, it's pouring outside. It's time to stop complaining and to get up and do something about it. Not everybody should run like me. I'm not saying
Mhm.
that, but get involved. Do something. I mean, the people that don't do something could serve as bad examples, if nothing else. Um,
Right.
you should.
There's always,
That's
yeah,
what that so it's not, if not you, who? If not now, when? If you got a mouth that's moving to complain, or maybe you got a body or a brain that can help in some other way, the problem. And if everybody helps just a little bit, it takes a bunch of ants to make an ant colony to build an ant home, right? Just doing your little part creates the whole bigger picture.
exactly. And that's why down there on the bottom, obviously, we have your website there, michaelassembly.com. If you guys are interested in Nathan Michaels, I always want to say Michaels, it's Michael. Nathan
Yep.
Michael and his campaign here for the 6th Assembly District, whether you're going to be helping him out door knocking, make a donation, just be a part of his team, contact him. I'm sure he'll reach out to you guys. Nathan, I can't thank you enough. This has been a phenomenal conversation. Like I said, I'm sure we could have easily done another 2-3 hours with the material we've already worked with.
Oh, I'm sure, but people might get tired of listening to us after a while.
That's all right. They'll always come back. They can always take a snack break, come back, get some popcorn, and just rock it out.
Oh, it's been a lot of fun, Ed. I thank you very much.
No, and anytime you want to come back on, please let me know and we'll hook it up.
All right. Thanks a lot, Ed.
All right, brother. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. We'll definitely be in touch.
Okay.
All right, guys, that was Nathan Michael running for the 6th Assembly District here in the great state of Wisconsin. And phenomenal conversation. And this is what we're going to try to bring to you each and every week as we put on new candidates, new people. So I want to thank again Nathan Michael. The website's right down there. You'll see that there. Tomorrow night, 8 p.m. I'm going to have Paul Burning on. He'll be my guest as we just kind of talk it up. We're going to be going over things like civic responsibility, his role as he just recently elected into the county board, and just what we have with the election going forward here as we go into the final weeks of the primary, moving toward the general election of election 2022. As always, please make sure you like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. If you find us on YouTube, subscribe. And brother's trying to get to that magic 1,000 subs. Right now, I'm at 30. Got a long road to go, but it's all good. But thank you guys. You guys make this special. You guys make this possible. I appreciate your time. Good night. God bless you. God bless the state of Wisconsin. I'm out.